Hello and welcome to Sansad TV. You're watching Viewpoint with me, Frank Rausen Pereira. Well, India is undergoing a remarkable transformation in artificial intelligence. Through forward-looking policies, the government is empowering students, startups and innovators with world-class AI infrastructure. Initiatives such as the India AI Mission and the establishment of centers of excellence for AI are strengthening the country's AI ecosystem as a whole. These efforts align with the vision of Viksit Bharat by 2047, where India aspires to become a global AI powerhouse. In this edition of Viewpoint, we will analyze India as a global hub for AI infrastructure. Joining me on the program today are Subimal Bhattacharjee, artificial intelligence expert, Chaitra, Vedullapalli, emerging technologies expert, and Anjani Kumar, partner, Deloitte, India. Thank you to my guests for joining me on this edition of Viewpoint. So, Vimal, let me start the program with you first. Let's first try and understand, when we talk about AI infrastructure, what are the components really that make up AI infrastructure?
Frank, thank you for inviting me. I think it's a very crucial time when you discuss this, because a lot is happening on this whole AI front in the country, and particularly even on the focus on infrastructure or the overall ecosystem. I think there is a lot for your viewers to now. Having seen, in the last couple of years, the kind of activities and the ramp up and the policy focus from the government, I can clearly conclude that we are just having the right impetus to realize, the collective strength rather than the silos of or the islands of excellence that have existed across the country in this space. And this is where the whole story of the ecosystem and the infrastructure becomes important. So coming to your question, you see, if you look at the approach that is being followed in the country, right from a design perspective to the semiconductor ecosystem to the artificial intelligence, programming and everything, you can say the more of the software part of it. Everywhere, there is a thrust. If you have observed in the last few years, the National AI Mission definitely came, and then the incentives were provided. But besides that, India was already working in different aspects of AI, even for more than a decade. Many of the large companies in this space, let's take the name of NVIDIA, it has at least 4 locations in this country where much work around design is happening. Almost half of their total employees work out of India. So I think the focus to be able to bring all of them together collectively to create a national picture, utilize it for the various facets of governance, as well as the business activities and all. I think that is gaining traction, and that is what even the efforts of the Niti Aayog, or even from the office of the principal scientific advisor, all of those are going in a direction where we are able to utilize the advantages of this AI ecosystem optimally for giving us better results.
Absolutely. Okay, let me take the points forward now with Chaitra and bring her into the picture as well. Chaitra, as far as the scope for AI infrastructure, India as an AI hub is concerned, what does the scope look like? What do we need to do to ensure that we fully utilize this potential?
First is thank you for having me, Frank. We have to look at where we are. We are actually standing on the edge of kind of the next industrial revolution, which is not powered by coal, oil, or electricity, but by intelligence. So in this era, what we are looking at is the AI factories will become the engine rooms for transformation, and the data becomes the decision, and the code becomes our capability, and also the intelligence becomes the real infrastructure. So as we build factories for the past, we built for our cities, today's AI factories will become our digital, that will build the digital nation. So we need to think about digital tokens and automation workflows, but power everything from autonomous supply chain to like an AI-driven healthcare in the rural clinics. So if you think from a India perspective, it is home to the youngest youth tech talent and also has a very bold vision, which is focused on the digital public infrastructure, because Prime Minister Modi has done a fantastic job in setting AI for good, AI for all. That kind of vision is very good. So you really need to think about as a AI ready and AI responsible nation. So when we think about the AI ready India, so we need the infrastructure that has to be democratized very fast. So first is you have to really lay the fiber, which is the high speed internet, which becomes the foundation. So the reliable fiber optic networks across the cities, the villages, and the remote area, they all have to come together, just like the express highways for digital information. The second part would be the access. Everyone needs access, not just the big companies. So you have to make AI very affordable, the cloud services affordable, and also ensure that the public data platforms and AI tools for startup, the students, and the small businesses can grow their business. The third area, which I would say India really needs to focus because it's such a huge population, is around skilling. So infrastructure is not just the building, but it's also the people. So you need training centers, certification programs, and learning hubs. And the last one, which is the governance and the trusted tech, AI has to be secure, safe, and fair, so that the data center that we are building is really around the clean energy. We have the right cybersecurity protection, and also the AI testing labs that can be built on ethical and inclusive. So when you think about that kind of democratizing the infrastructure, AI needs to reach everyone, not just the few. So that's kind of what I would say, what India needs to think through.
Absolutely. I think very succinctly put there by Chaitra, the item areas and the kind of things that need to come into place and fall into place if we truly want to be a hub of AI infrastructure. Anjali, let me bring you into the picture now. Chaitra has pointed out some of the components that are really required so as to ensure that we have a robust AI infrastructure in place. One, I have two parts of my question. One, of course, where do we stand at the moment? And are there any more elements that need to come in and need to fall in place so that we can take this forward the way that we want to?
Yeah, at the outset, Frank, thank you for inviting me to this discussion. So I think maybe I want to start with a statistic which will showcase where we are and what's the potential for us. So, today India has about 1.2, 1.3 gigawatts of power going into data center. That represents only 3% of the world's data center capacity. On the other hand, we as a country generate 20% of the world's data. So look at the dissonance, 3% of the world's data center capacity versus 20% of the data generation that happens in India. And unfortunately, a lot of this data gets hosted in data centers outside of India. So clearly, as we think about the next 4 to 5 years, there is a huge potential for us to leapfrog and narrow this gap. And I think what is really brilliant is the fact, Chaitra talked about AI factories. As we are looking at setting up AI data centers, which are run on GPUs and not CPUs, that's where we have an opportunity to narrow this gap and become the AI factory and the AI headquarters of the world. So what we did was just last week, we released a report in association with Niti Aayog on how do we attract increasingly more investments in the AI data center infrastructure in India. And when we did the analysis and did a benchmarking of India across the world, what we found that we are very favorably placed to become a data center hub of the world when it comes to the cost of the land cost in setting up a data center, the cost of electricity per unit, the cost of the broad infrastructure, and the cost of talent. I think the place where we need to make a lot more strides, and that's what the report indicates in terms of recommendations to different states as well as to different central ministries. One is clearly in terms of renewable power. These data centers, especially the AI data centers, are extremely, extremely power hungry. The latest racks are anywhere between 110 to 120 kilowatt per rack of power. So clearly on the renewable side, stability of the grid, availability of increased renewable power to all the data centers, that's clearly one. I think the second is some of the reforms in terms of land acquisition. Some of the data centers take up to 8 to 12 months to get 40 plus approvals to set that up. Some of the laws are not necessarily conducive to setting up a data center because the National Building Commission treats data center like any other building, like a building having IT workforce, whereas it's a very different kind of workforce. So that's the second. And the third is from a skilling perspective. While we have people who have AI skills, but data center again requires solution architects, it requires cybersecurity experts, it requires people who can plan out the data center, who can visualize it. Those are skills which are not easily available. So how can we as a country make sure we are making those investments in getting people skilled with these specific skills? And there are lots of Indians who are running global data centers with the hyperscalers across the world. So again, getting them to train people in India, getting them to come back is again another way for us to bridge that skill gap.
Absolutely. I think technology is the key here along with the people as well, and that is of utmost importance, and both these need to go hand in hand if we want to get to where we do at 2047. Subimal, let me bring you to the picture once again. A couple of aspects that I want to take forward with you. One, of course, cost effectiveness of AI. At the end of the day, it needs to be cost effective. That is one. And not just that, it has to be competitive as well. That is one aspect. Another aspect, of course, being the kind of training that individuals require in the years to come so that they are ready for the AI challenge.
Yeah, Frank, I think these are very brilliant questions. I just want to touch a little bit on what Mr. Anjani said. So I think the focus on data centers is very crucial, and the kind of ramp up that I haven't seen their report with Niti Aayog, but the kind of ramp up that would be required. I was seeing a study that looking at about 45 million square feet by 2030 from the current about, I think, 15 million square feet, and also it's almost 3 times in the next few years. So data centers are definitely one of the biggest engines of growth that I also see in this country, and particularly the AI-enabled data centers. And even Chaitra had mentioned about the need for looking at clean energy and stuff like that. So apart from the renewable energy part, also factoring in how you do the cooling today. You save a lot of energy if you put the right technology for cooling in all these data centers that come up, and particularly now water-based cooling is also available. That over a period of I think 5 years actually reduces the cost of even operating these places very, very effectively. So that's where, how do we build the cost-effective data centers? How do we build a cost-effective AI infrastructure? We are setting up semiconductor packaging plants. We are looking at, in fact, the IT minister also mentioned about the 3nm design of a chip that has happened very recently in the country. So we are looking at setting up semiconductor fabs and packaging units across the country. Already 4 and 5 are in place. I just visited one of them, the only one in the Northeast set up by the Tatas yesterday, and I could see the enthusiasm, for this region. This is a game changer, a region which saw youngsters picking up guns and getting into extremism and all. Today, when these youngsters are being trained to get into this data center or even the semiconductor packaging industry and all, it's a transformational change that's happening to a region, and I can't tell you the enthusiasm that I can see. So from a perspective of nation building, getting more people into the data ecosystem in regions which hitherto never thought about it even in the last 5 years, I think this is significant. So the way we have to focus right now on the infrastructure build-up is, I think, of course, we have to factor in how do we do it environmentally safe. We try to see that how do we get the finances around it. There's a huge startup ecosystem in this country, mostly getting up around AI. I saw some figures recently also. Now, are they being logically driven towards some real successful entity, or most of them are falling apart because one, the venture funding or the capital availability to them, or carrying that idea forward and being a part of the system, are they going into it? So these are few of the things. I have a very interesting point, Frank, I make is that we have a lot of mangoes in the country, but we haven't been able to create the mango ecosystem yet in the country. And by mango ecosystem, I mean, you look at Meta, you look at Anthropic, you look at Nvidia, you look at Google, and then you look at OpenAI. Now this is a great opportunity for us to see if we can get something. When the DeepSeek stories started coming from China, I think there were a lot of heartburns across the various sectors in the country that, how come we get into this bandwagon and remain meaningfully active. Absolutely. So I think that this is where I think we have to see that how do we create our own mango ecosystem now.
So, Chaitra, let me bring you into the picture, and let me just take the point that, Subimal is making forward with you. He mentioned DeepSeek, So, as far as India is concerned, where do we stand vis-a-vis the other nations with regards to AI? That is one. Second, of course, you spent a lot of time in major corporations like Microsoft and others working with cutting-edge technology, etc. So, what more do we need to do to get there?
So, Frank, I'm kind of going to set kind of the context of it so that it will help kind of connect all the stories. Like when we think about the AI economy, right, the biggest threat we always talk about is bias. It's not just the bias, but it's the invisibility factor. So the invisible algorithms will be shaping everything. Who gets hired, who gets healed, who gets access to what it is. And no one wants to hear the truth, or they want to admit the truth. So one of the big things that India has to also look at is how women are participating in this economy, and also they are given access to opportunities. So when you think about in just 2025, 150 million women in India will be experiencing menopause. And there's no national policy, no institutional support, no tech access. So when you think about it, we are not providing access to half of the population. So now when you think about from a global perspective, when you look at the national perspective, when we are building this AI factory for the future, we need to ensure the population is getting the entire access. So one is from an AI skills leadership. India ranks #1 in the AI skills penetration, which has surpassing the US and Germany. But also it is not doing the same thing for women, because it's a very strong market, and they can also contribute to the world economy and the Indian economy. The second one is the data generation and the infrastructure that Anjani talked about is, India generates over 20% of the global data, but only 3% of the world data center capacity. So there's a huge opportunity there. The area which I have seen, which India is doing, there's only 1.2 billion investment in the AI sector, whereas if you hear from US and Europe, they are looking into a multi-billion-dollar investment, which is enhancing the computing capability, or local startups, or expanding AI. In India, it's only 1.2 billion in the AI sector. So there's a whole need for the money to come in. And so when you think about all this stuff, is the gap, which is the policy is fragmented, the audience which can contribute to the overall mission of AI. Half of the population is not connected. And then when you look at the big public-private announcement, like Stargate is not happening in India. You need like huge a partnership, like if you bring mangoes there, or, as Subimal talked about, you need to drive public-private partnership and create projects like Stargate. That is very important. And then ensure like the startups are getting kind of high-performance GPUs. So when you think from the world from US and coming into India, I would say, investing in the data center and cloud services are not just the tech infrastructure, but also you need to really provide is the latency for the technology, the innovation. So the cloud is completely accessible for the startups so they can innovate very easily. And so they don't need this very expensive infrastructure. Then equity is making sure that the data center can empower small towns and placing the data infrastructure, not just in the big city, but also giving access to tier 2 and tier 3, equal access to the tech, the training, the jobs, and the innovation. And when you do that, I think India will be at the cutting edge of AI adoption.
Absolutely. And we hope that happens sooner rather than later. Anjani, coming back to you now, what are some of the other challenges really you foresee along the way as far as AI infrastructure is concerned?
Yeah, I think maybe I'll just go back to the statistics Subimal talked about, and that's from our report, where we have projected that India will need another additional 50 million square foot of space for AI data centers and 45 terawatt hours of power. So those are the, in some senses also give you a sense of the challenges that we have. So we need, we are about 12 to 15 million square foot today in data center, an additional 45 is needed. So where would the space come from? I think what we think is the right way for us to go is we have to look at creating these clusters and hubs in every state. So think about a data center policy. And, about 10 to 12 of Indian states already have fairly detailed data center policies. How can you make it more attractive for investors? How can you identify hub within each state where you get real estate? Almost think about it like in the IT space, we had SEZs. Can you have data center equivalent SEZs? Can you have a single window clearance system where instead of running to 10 different departments, the clearances can be given? You're creating an ecosystem of enterprises, of startups, of data center providers, government departments, and academia together at one place. And think about it as several such hubs in each of our states, which can become the data center hub for that. So that's clearly one part from a real estate point of view. The second point, as I said, we need about 45 terawatt hours of power, incremental power over the next 5 years. So where is that power going to come from? Again, it has to be state by state. Some states are power deficit, some states are power surplus. And this power also has to be renewable. So how do we make sure that from a policy standpoint, from an investment in the grid standpoint, from setting up these renewable solar parks next to these hubs where we are setting up these data centers, that becomes critical. And I think the third element is the connectivity. Today, if you see where data center development has happened in India, about 70+% is just in two regions. It's in Mumbai, which is the Thane-Belapur region, and then it's in Chennai. And one of the big reasons for that is there are undersea landing cables in both these areas. Now, India is incredibly fortunate to have this huge coastline. Now, can we look at landing cables across the entire coast? Because that also becomes a critical element of setting up data center infrastructure, because the latency becomes low. We have an issue of fiber cuts when data centers are in the hinterlands. So can we look at some of these areas along the coast? So that's the third. I think the fourth is from a pure compute perspective. Today GPUs are at the heart of AI data centers, and today we are only importing those GPUs. So as part of the national semiconductor mission, the country and the government is looking at how can we set up some of these design centers. We already have manufacturing centers, but can we also get to the design part of semiconductors,
Right.
where the GPUs, silicon IP is all made in India? So that's the fourth. And the last, I would say, is from an enabling policy perspective, attracting in. And these data centers are not just for India. There is a huge export market as well. If
Right.
you look at Southeast Asia, if you look at Middle East, if you look at all of South Asia, there are opportunities for us to export the data center services there as well. So how do we have some of the enabling policies that allow for safe harbor, that don't make a permanent establishment out of somebody who's hosting only the data in the data centers in India? Some of those enabling policies is the fifth element for us to make sure we as India emerge as the data center hub of the world.
Absolutely. Thank you for so beautifully, putting those things into perspective for us. Time to get quick closing comments from all my panelists with the best way forward. I've got limited time, so in 30 seconds each, what next and where do we go from here? Starting first with you, Subimal.
I think, Frank, the first thing is that the national AI policy, from its 10,500 crores, the allocation has to be increased at least 5 or 6-fold times. I think a focused approach to be able to, again, come back to my mango point, to be able to see that we can generate a mango ecosystem in the country has to be really there. The potential is there. Everything has to be done in a very strategic manner and in a very coordinated manner.
Chaitra?
I would say is coming from Women in Cloud and supporting women across the world and democratizing $1 billion in AI economy and working with leaders like Vinay and Kushagra in India to really drive the change. I would say is India needs to ensure that the policies that are created is supporting everyone in the country. So they're focusing on human first, India first future, so that the products are inclusive by design. It creates a distributed access, it's ethical and safe, but and also aspirational and exportable. So all the world can also experience all the beautiful products and solutions that come for it. So
Right.
my thing is the future of AI is not in labs, but it's really in farms and clinics and homes and classrooms. So I hope India can bring that to the world.
Absolutely. And Anjani, close the show for us with your concluding remarks.
Yeah, so I think for us to really become the AI hub of the world, it has to start at the state level. So almost think about it, what are we doing for AI? The state for state for India, and state for the world. I think that's how we have to really break down the problem, break down the investments, and all the discussions, all the investments, whether it's in the India AI mission, whether it's, by different departments, it has to start at the state level and then scale up for the state, for India, and then eventually for the world.
Well, let's hope that that happens very, very soon because we are on the cusp, we are on the edge, is what one of the panelists said as far as this AI revolution is concerned. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. What's coming out of this discussion is that the AI infrastructure hub can be a reality really soon. Opportunities and potential really galore as far as India is concerned. What we need is equitable growth. We need to be cost effective as well and provide not only for India but for the world so that they can get a taste of what India has to offer. With that, it's a wrap. See you again next time.